first person that's called me.
It is 5 o'clock. I call to order the meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville. In the City Council sitting is the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, the Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, the Victorville Water District, and the city is Housing Assets successor. Have roll call, please.
Councilmember Kennedy. Here. Councilmember McEachron.
Here.
Councilmember Negrete.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cox.
Here.
Mayor Garcia.
Here. This is a time, find my place, excuse me. The time and place when public can address the City Council. I don't see anyone in the audience at this time. Therefore, I will request declaration of closed session items by our city attorney.
Mayor Garcia, if it's okay with you, there is going to be a very short public comment. Lori Kemper from the Lahontan Regional Water Quality Control Board is here. Would like to address the council, if that's okay with you.
Certainly, it's okay. Go ahead.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor. My name's Lori Kemper, and I'm the Assistant Executive Officer at the Lahontan Regional Water Quality Control Board. I'm based out of our South Lake Tahoe office, and I know some of you probably know Mike Plasiak, who has been the division manager who runs our Victorville office. He left for Maine last month for a new job with the drinking water program at the state of Maine. So he is no longer in our Victorville office. We're trying to hire someone in the next couple of months. So I'm kind of your point of contact at this point, as well as Patrice Copeland, who's kind of helping out of the Victorville office. But I'm based out of our South Lake Tahoe office, so I was here today meeting with your staff on some other matters important to the city. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to say hello and to thank you for being part of a lot of the integrated regional watershed management planning that's occurring. There is a Mojave group that meets regularly to talk about watershed management and water quality issues in the Mojave Basin. And I appreciate all of your staff's support and involvement in those efforts. Our board, a couple months ago, signed an agreement with the Mojave Water Agency to include all the partner agencies in the watershed to craft a list of what we call supplemental environmental projects. These are projects that our board sometimes has funding for that comes out of penalties that are imposed on folks who violated a permit or other requirements of the region. So it's an opportunity to turn some of that penalty money back into the local area and the local communities. So the City of Victorville has some projects on that list, and I just wanted to thank you for being part of that effort, as well as the steps that the city's been taking to work on the municipal stormwater issues, and I know that's been very controversial, but I just wanted to kind of put a face to Lahontan and a number of new requirements that the State Water Board has imposed on all small communities such as Victorville. So we're trying to work through those requirements to make them as reasonable and relevant to the city as possible, as well as to our priorities, which I think are similar to yours, which is providing adequate flood control, using stormwater as a resource, getting it back in the ground, recharging the groundwater, and providing safe drinking water to the people of the Mojave Desert and the Victor Valley. So I appreciate all your efforts to do those things, and maybe we'll see you again in the future on a number. I know there's a number of issues. I was talking to staff also about septic systems, so there's lots of topics. So I'm going to just leave the card with your clerk. All right, thank you.
Thank you so very much. Okay, at this time, can we have closed session items by our city attorney, please?
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. We actually have 9 closed session items this evening, several of which are related. Item A is anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 D2, and the facts related to that litigation are set forth on the agenda. Item B is real property negotiations pursuant to Government Code 54956.8. The property APNs are listed on the agenda. The negotiating parties are also set forth on the agenda, and that will be price and terms. Items C, D, F, G, H, and I are all pending litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 D1. Items C and D on behalf of the City Council, items F, G, H, and I on behalf of the Airport Authority. The case numbers are set forth. They are different cases, and they are specifically set forth on the agenda. Item E is existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 D1, and the case is Washington Fund versus City of Victorville. Case number set forth on the agenda. To the extent there is any reportable action, we will report it either at the conclusion of the closed session or at the commencement of the regular 6 o'clock session.
Thank you. We will now recess to our closed session, and our regular session convenes at 6 p.m.
This side appears to be the city boundary.
I know. I can't believe it's all going to be time to replace it pretty soon, huh?
That's why I couldn't figure out why they didn't.
Oh, this is the city boundary? This,
South, yeah,
so in that part of the,
and there's nobody there.
so Bear Valley Road is entirely in Victorville,
Mhm.
in that area.
It is 6 o'clock, and I call to order the meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville. And the City Council sitting is the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, the Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, the Victorville Water District, and the city is Housing Assets successor. May we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Kennedy?
Here.
Councilmember McEachran? Councilmember Negretti?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cox?
Here.
Mayor Garcia.
Here. May we have our closed session announcements by our city attorney, please?
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. We had 9 closed session items on the agenda this evening. Item A was anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D2, and the information relating to that is set forth on the agenda. Item B, real property negotiations pursuant to Government Code 54956.8. The property is identified on the agenda, as are the negotiating parties. Items C and D, along with F, G, H, and I, are all pending litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1, and the litigation parties and the case numbers are all set forth. Items F, G, H, and I being for the Airport Authority, the other 2 items being for the City Council. And lastly, item E is existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1, and that is the Washington Fund LLC versus the City of Victorville, with the case number set forth on the agenda. There is reportable action only with respect to item E, the last item, the Washington Fund litigation. The reportable action is that we are and have received a settlement agreement from Washington Fund LLC, also GT Hotels and Green Tree Inn. This relates to a dispute over unpaid transient occupancy tax amounts where they previously filed suit against the city. The terms of the settlement agreement are that they are going to pay the city an amount equal to $40,000 in 6 installments and are going to be current on all of their transient occupancy taxes going forward.
Very good. Thank you.
Excuse me, and the council voted unanimously to approve that.
Thank you. This evening, we will have the invocation delivered by Curtis Green with Burning Bush, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Police Chief Samuel Shia. Please stand.
Good evening, if you would bow with me. Dear Lord, we come to you tonight, Lord, just thank you for another day that we've never seen before. Thank you for waking us up this morning and bringing us on our way. Lord, today we just pray that you would continue to have your hand over this Victorville City Council and staff, Lord God, that you would lead them and guide them, Lord God. We pray for them as they are the leaders over this city. Continue to bless them, to lead them, and give them wisdom, Lord God, for all the decisions they have to make. Bless their families, keep them safe while they're away from their families right now, Lord God. We ask this all in your darling Son, Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands.
This evening, we do have a special presentation. This is honoring our local public safety heroes, and I will come down and present the 2 plaques that I have here this evening. Actually, I had requested 3 more, but we were unable to get them in time, but we will have those presented to the other 3 captains from Apple Valley, Hesperia, and Atlanto at our next public meeting. Can I have Police Captain Sam Lucia and Fire Chief Dan Manzi please come forward and join me, please? They make me feel smaller than I am. The City of Victorville is proud to join the cities of Atlanto, Apple Valley, Barstow, and Hesperia in proclaiming September 2016 Local Public Safety Heroes Month. We call upon our community to join us in recognizing the sacrifice and service of our public safety officers and support teams. A joint proclamation is in the process of being signed by the mayors of each high desert city. I look forward to presenting you the final proclamation after it has been signed by all 5 mayors. For now, I want to express to you our gratitude for your service to the City of Victorville, your outstanding leadership, and your commitment to keeping our city, our citizens and city safe. Together, we build a stronger Victorville. And just straight from my heart, I just want to say thank you to all the police officers, everyone in law enforcement, fire department, first responders. I hope everyone feels the same way that I do, that if it wasn't for them, we would not feel safe at all in our communities. I thank you so much, and I will present these plaques to you. Police Captain Sam Lucia, I present this plaque to you from the city of And from the City of Victorville, I hereby also present to Fire Chief Dan Manzi this plaque. Thank you so very much.
I'm going to humbly accept this plaque, but really, it's not because of my doing. It's because of the doing of the folks you see in the back of the room. So if you could recognize them with a round of applause, I'd appreciate it.
Sam brought 11 deputies with me, and the truth be told, I asked for a fire engine and a fire truck and a squad to be here with me this evening. And on the way here, they got a structure fire, which occurs so often in Victorville. We owe a debt of gratitude both to the public for being fire safe and making sure that your houses are safe for us to defend in firestorms like we've seen over the last couple of weeks, but also to the City Council, which has really demonstrated their support for public safety all along. I recently went to the National Firefighter Down Memorial in Emmitsburg, Maryland, and I counted 10 friends that were on that plaque that have given their lives. I no longer have enough fingers. And you don't think that's going to happen when you start this career, but over the course, I've seen firefighters die in wildland fires and structure fires, being hit by cars on the pass, and from dying from cancer or other respiratory-related illnesses. And it breaks my heart. But on 9/11, we think about the 343 firefighters that died in the World Trade Center. Doing this job, it's hard emotionally on us and our families, and your support means absolutely everything to us. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. Madam Clerk, can you please present the agenda to the council and any revisions to the agenda?
Mayor Garcia. Persons who wish to address the council on a specific item or any item that does not appear on the agenda are requested to complete one of the white speaker cards located in the council chambers lobby and give it to the city clerk prior to the meeting. The mayor will call upon each individual who has submitted a speaker card. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.3, state law prohibits the council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. The council may receive testimony and set the matter to a subsequent meeting. Comments are to be limited to 3 minutes per speaker or less, as deemed necessary by the mayor. Communications are to be addressed directly to the city council. Individual comments to staff or members of the audience are not permitted. Any individual or group who engages in disruptive conduct during the meeting will be removed from the chambers by order of the mayor. All documents to be considered for approval at this meeting are before the council, and there are no revisions that have been submitted for tonight's agenda.
Thank you. We do not have any appeal hearings this evening, so we move on to public hearings. And the first item, B1, a public hearing to hear arguments for and against granting a certificate of public convenience and necessity to First Choice Non-Emergency Medical Transportation, LLC, for a non-emergency medical transportation business. The recommendation is any action is at the discretion of the City Council. I open the public hearing at this time. I do not have any cards on this particular item. Is there anyone that would like to come forward and speak? I don't see anyone. I close the public hearing. Are there any comments from council members? We have an action, please.
Move approval of resolution number 16-049.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cox, second by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Item B2, a public hearing to hear arguments for and against a planned unit development modification to allow for an update to development and amenity standards of planned unit development PLN 07-00123 and a tentative track map extension of track 14525. Madam Clerk, please read the recommendation.
Recommendation is that the City Council find the project previously assessed under a mitigated negative declaration, waive further reading, and introduce planned unit development modification ordinance number 2356 and approve tentative track map time extension resolution number 16-050.
I open the public hearing at this time. I do not have any cards. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come forward and speak? Is there someone? No? I don't see anyone. I close the public hearing. Any comments from council members?
I do have some questions, Madam Mayor.
Go ahead.
Staff, this is probably easy to answer these. I noticed on the recommendations, find the project previously assessed under the mitigated negative declaration, which means it doesn't have to go through that process again if we make a finding. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Secondly, approve plan unit development modification ordinance number 2356. Is that the ordinance where the city council changed the standards for how it looks, widths of the lots, on and on and on?
Yes.
Exactly is 2356.
Yes, although I think the modifications generally were the design of the, mainly affecting the cul-de-sacs, and then also to add a clubhouse and a swimming pool to the amenities.
Added,
Yes.
and the,
That was at the request of the applicant.
request the applicant,
Yes.
as far as planning staff is concerned, there are no issues that all been worked out with the
As
applicant?
far as planning staff is concerned, we feel like the improvements and the modifications that are being done justify the reduction of the lot size from 7,200 to 5,000, which is the minimum in this PUD.
Chris, question. Will this be a gated community?
No, I don't believe so.
It's a planned unit development
Yes,
with 5,000 square foot lots.
correct.
Looked like a beautiful development. I mean, the designs are great.
That's and we feel like with the design, the changes to the cul-de-sacs, making them pie-shaped lots instead of the ones that ended in side yards, that makes it even better.
And the question I was going to ask. I've lost it.
But-
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to clarify, the 5,000 square foot lot is the minimum lot size, not the average.
Right.
They could be bigger.
Do you feel like, because this seems, correct me if my memory is serving me wrong, but this seems like the first one to kind of come through and go through this process of a modification and the authorization. Are you getting what you think you will have as a model for planned unit developments in the future?
Yes. This
Is
would
this something
probably
you
be
can, like,
on the
give to
high
future
end.
developers and say,
This would be on the high end. Yes.
That's good, because you have something that you can actually tangibly give to a developer that says, here's what we're looking for, this is what we want.
Absolutely.
My question was, if it was gated, all the interior infrastructure would be someone else's responsibility. But
Correct.
since it's not, it's a PUD, but it's going to be the city's responsibility.
Correct. Yeah, it's up to whether the streets are public or private.
We have some other developments in the city that, as you know, are been built on smaller lots. Do we see any of the risks here that we have seen as negative outcomes in some of those developments?
Well, you always have those risks, sure. They could still be there with this development, and but with the standards, with the possibility for an HOA, with the city's proactive enforcement continuing throughout the development, hopefully that's taken care of.
Thank you.
The amenities that were added, not a public responsibility, though.
Oh, correct. Those would be the residents.
So there's some form of an assessment, so
Yes,
the residents will
Mhm.
pay for that
exactly.
rather than the public. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We need a motion.
Ordinance number 2356, an ordinance of the City of Victorville adopting planned unit development modification PLN 16-00010 to allow for an update to development and amenity standards of planned unit development PLN 07-00123 PUD 09-001 on property located north of State Highway 18, south of Interstate 15, east of and abutting the Mojave River, and west of and abutting Stoddard Wells Road, SLPR LLC.
I'll move for approval of ordinance number 2356 to waive further reading and resolution number 16-050.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McEachran, second by Mr. Cox. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Now we move on to consent calendar. Consent calendar, item C1 through C20. What was that? Excuse me, I do have one card. We are on consent calendar, and I do have a card on item C4. Clayton Moore, if you'll come up and.
Closer than I thought. Good evening. I guess I'm commenting on your proposed ballot measure for the California Voting Rights Act. And I was reading it in the agenda, and again, it was unclear to me, but it looks like deleting Section 300 and Section 301 is a step toward your proposed plan, I guess, here. All I know is there's a similar item on the school district agenda that's going to be coming up 25 hours from now, tomorrow evening. And so you're invited to see what we have on our agenda on our website, which I submit is clearer and easier to understand than what I saw on your agenda on your website. In Redlands Unified School District is converting from at-large elections where the whole city votes for the entire school board. They are converting to by-district elections where each subdivided district of that area votes for a school board trustee from that area. And that is what I understand their resolution says. It's resolution number 28 on their website, redlands.k12.ca.us. Resolution initiating process of establishing trustee areas and elections by trustee areas. And their superintendent said their plans to switch from at-large elections to by-trustee area elections was their proactive attempt to conform with the California Voting Rights Act. They want to educate their community significantly about the process, said Superintendent Lori Rhodes. I think when residents see the proposed maps and have a good representation of the whole district, and she believes that's a good government strategy. So I have a copy of the article I'm referring to here. I'll be happy to submit that for your information. And again, you're welcome to please check our agenda about our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to come up and speak? I don't see anyone. Therefore, items C1 through C20 can be approved with one motion unless there is an item that needs to be put for discussion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McEachran, second by Mr. Cox. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Now we move on to written communications. Item D1, appointment of voting delegate and alternate to the League of California Cities 2016 Annual Business Meeting, General Assembly. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation on this.
Recommendation is that the City Council appoint one council member as the voting delegate to the League of California Cities 2016 Annual Business Meeting, General Assembly, and one council member as the alternate voting delegate.
As far as I recall, I believe Mr. McEachran is the delegate.
I was the alternate named last year. Eric indicated that he may attend, may want to go. I'm so unsure because of all the other things. I would nominate Eric to be the Ekman as the delegate.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Cox, second by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Item D2, amendment number 4 to General Services Provider Standard Agreement for ILS, AWS, DME, VOR, Tower Maintenance Madam Clerk, please read the recommendation.
Recommendation is that the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority approve Amendment Number 4 to the General Services Provider Agreement between Treadwell Support Services and the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, extending the term through June 30, 2017, and maintaining the compensation at an amount not to exceed $77,000.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Mr. McEachran. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Item D3, Amendment Number 4 to General Services Provider Standard Agreement for Airport Security Services. Madam Clerk, please read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority approve Amendment Number 4 to the General Services Provider Standard Agreement between New Way Security and Investigative Services and Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, extending the term to June 30, 2017, and maintaining the compensation at an amount not to exceed $253,000.
Question for staff, Doug. We're approving several of these amendments to standing agreements, or maybe Keith. Just so the public doesn't think we just keep on going year in and year end, same as last year. What is our bid process for these agreements? How often do they go out to bid?
Typically, if we're happy with the provider, the bids will include anywhere from 3 to 5 years of renewals at the same rate or with some kind of a modification for cost of living increase. But every time we do that, none of them are automatic. It's always an annual process that staff will evaluate. If we believe we're being provided with good service and want to save the time and money and expense of going out to bid, we'll just simply renew for those multiple years. I've seen 2 years, 3 years, as many as 5.
So when they come back to us, it's a pretty clear statement from staff that you're satisfied with the performance.
Exactly. Exactly.
Thank you. I move approval on
Second.
D3.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Mr. Negretti. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Item D4, Amendment Number 1 to Construction Agreement for Emergency Electrical Contractor at Southern California Logistics Airport. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation, please.
Recommendation is that the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority approve Amendment Number 1 to the construction agreement between Hampton Tedder Electric Company and the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, extending the term through June 30, 2017, and maintaining the compensation at an amount not to exceed $25,000.
Question here is, that's your spending authority, isn't it?
It is. We happen to have another contract with this company through our Victorville Municipal Utility Services that the total of the two puts it above my spending authority. So we could I probably could have signed it, but just out of an abundance of caution, making sure that that our auditors don't flag this if they thought differently. That's why it's before you tonight.
What's the comment that this compensation, wait a minute. Although this individual contract does not warrant your honorable board's approval.
I think that's just referring to, as Councilmember Kennedy was referring to, it's within my spending authority. It's within Mr. Metzler's spending authority. Normally, a $25,000 contract would not come to you. A $25,001 contract would. But because of the existing $10,000 contract, we're just wanted to make sure that the public's business is without
approval.
question being done.
I'll second that, but I want to thank you. That's appreciated.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Mr. McEachran. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Item D5, Amendment Number 4 to General Services Provider Standard Agreement for Stationary Equipment Fire Pumps at Southern California Logistics Airport. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
Recommendation is that the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority Board of Directors approve Amendment Number 4 to the General Services Provider Standard Agreement between Scorpion Fire Protection and the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, extending the term through June 30, 2017, and maintaining the compensation to an amount not to exceed $88,640.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McEachran, second by Mr. Cox. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
D6, standard lease agreement for Building 879 at the Southern California Logistics Airport. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
Recommendation is that the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority Board of Directors ratify the execution of the standard lease agreement for Building 879 at SCLA by and between General Electric Company and the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority.
Before we make a motion, I have a question. We have talked at different times about reviewing or looking at the agreements that we have, possible changes or amendments. This agreement, since it says it's a standard lease agreement, drafted and reviewed by the city attorney, and is it your recommendation for approval? Does it contain any of those changes that you have discussed with the city council recently?
Yes, it does. We review these contracts, and we are continually updating the template to ensure that the agreements are definitely beneficial to the airport authority.
The most updated template. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Basis, I move approval of the standard lease agreement for Building 879, General Electric.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cox, second by Mr. Negrete. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Item D7. By the way, I haven't had any cards submitted. That's why I don't have any. Item D7, repair services for La Mesa at ION Exchange Treatment Plant. Repair services for La Mesa ION Exchange Treatment Plant. Madam Clerk, please read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the Victorville Water District Board of Directors approve the award to Environgen Technologies, Inc. in the amount of $64,597.48 to perform repairs and maintenance at the La Mesa IX treatment plant.
This is interesting. Doug, are you here? I think I remember when we built this ion treatment plant. It's probably been 10, 12 years ago at the Water District. And it's been sitting idle. It doesn't... R3 is... R-cubed is a better source of water, so we weren't treating.
This one's actually in Baldy Mesa Water District in D2. It's off of La Mesa. It treats, I believe, wells 203, 205, and 207. They're the ones that don't go up to our blending facilities. But the R-Cube water is a cheaper source of water, so we haven't been running it except to keep it freshened up here and there, with the possibility that R-Cube may not always be a sufficient source for various reasons. We want to make sure this plant is operating at optimum performance, so we want to get it refreshed and at least ready to go in case we need it. It runs right now. We can have it running, but not optimally.
And that's arsenic treatment.
Yes.
Yeah.
It'll arsenic and chromium. It'll treat
both.
Mm-hmm.
We spent $11 million, as I recall, doing arsenic treatment, and you'd literally have to drink a swimming pool full of our water to get damaged or hurt by arsenic. So it's interesting. But how many of those treatment facilities do we have?
Ion Exchange, we just have one that's functional. So we have a coagulation filtration plant that's functional as well. But
that's because we weren't able to blend those wells.
Yeah, with separate water districts, it was challenging at the time. I think things would have been done differently if they were combined at the time. But R-Cube's actually an excellent source as well right now, though.
Okay.
This is insurance.
Yeah, it's a backup.
We aren't going
It's to keep it
start
running.
using
I
it.
mean, it's built. We're not using it until it becomes a cheaper source of water. Then we'll use it, or until our cube, if they had issues and said we couldn't give you any water, we would certainly need it.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Mr. Cox. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Item D8, agreement with City of Hesperia for Bear Valley Road reconstruction between Mariposa Road and Amargosa Road. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
Recommendation is that the City Council approve the standard agreement between the City of Victorville and the City of Hesperia.
There's no questions. Move approval.
Motion by Mr. Negretti, second by Mr. McEachran. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Item D9, Green Tree Boulevard Extension Project Term Loan Agreement between San Bernardino Associated Governments and the City of Victorville, and funding agreement among the City of Victorville, the Town of Apple Valley, and San Bernardino County. Madam Clerk, please read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council approve the term loan agreement by and between Sandbag and the City of Victorville for the Green Tree Boulevard Extension Project, approve the funding agreement among the City of Victorville, the Town of Apple Valley, and San Bernardino County, and authorize staff to revise the agreements for non-substantive changes if necessary.
If I might, I'd like to make the motion to approve this item with also the comments thanking staff for all the hard work. I know the going back and forth between the county, Sandbag, the town, there's been a tremendous amount of dialogue and discourse that's gone on to get to this point, but I appreciate all their efforts to get to this point. So with that, I'd like to make the motion that we approve this.
I've just got a couple questions before we vote on it, if I may. The financing plan, which is kind of what I'm concerned about because it stretches out in a number of years. We have about $6.5 million that's due, but I guess that's going to be reduced to $5.5 million on the Nisqually interchange. Something is.
We're due, I think it's about $5.5 million from other agencies, from the Town of Apple Valley and the county. If that's what you're talking
Nisqually.
about. Right.
We still owe $5.5 million.
Oh,
on that.
yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
And we're going to add $12.5 million to that. So we're looking at a $18 million debt paid for out of Measure I for the next roughly 18 years.
That would be a good estimate, yes.
I didn't see anywhere in here about the interest rate that it's mentioned that we'll pay the interest. Do you have any idea what the interest rate's going to be?
We're not. That's not known at this point in time. It'll be known at a much later date when Sandbag actually procures the financing. The way we understand the process effectively is Sandbag will bundle up all of the priority projects that they intend to fund and then fund them collectively with one issuance. So we'll know better at that time. But basically the way this agreement is structured is that we would be responsible for then paying our proportionate share of the costs associated with the issuance along with the direct project costs.
So whatever rate they get on their bonds is the rate we'll pay on this.
Right.
Any idea what the going rates are on? None? On municipal bonds?
I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't know enough
2%,
to guess right
3%?
now.
I'm sure it would be low, but I wouldn't hazard to guess a number.
I just did a rough calculation myself. If it's 3%, it's going to be almost $5 million of interest. That's at 3%. So this $18 million cost is not going to be satisfied in 18 years. It's satisfied in 20, 22, 23, something like that.
That could be out of.
And it likely also depends upon the rate of collection of diff funds as well.
Yeah, sure.
I have a question, Madam Mayor. I assume it says fiscal impact 13,737,000, but in reading the body of it, the Victorville share is 18,050,000. And that's taken care of, I suppose, with grants or so on. Victorville share would be covered. But I just found out we're not collecting DIF fees at the base, and there's some major projects going on. Do we earmark DIF from different areas of the city for only different areas? Or should that DIF fee be collected so it can be applied to this project? This is a huge project, very expensive project. A lot of Measure I funds for major projects. We aren't collecting DIF fees. And we've had some projects. I'd like to project.
The DIF program that we currently have is fairly uniform across the city, with the exception of DIF fees at the former George Air Force Base. And as much as we've researched over the years, there was policy established back in 1996 when the base actually applied for an enterprise zone, where as a part of the granting of the enterprise zone, it actually agreed to not collect or charge a DIF fee. Now, that's been a practice that's been in place dating back to then. So for all the new construction that does occur in the former George grounds, that's how we operate today. We are looking at altering that, especially in light of the fact that the RDAs have been dissolved. I think one of the logics that did go into perhaps justifying that collection of DIF was because of the ability for the base to effectively generate tax increment to fund its improvements. There is question, and even Mr. Gangler and I have talked about the nexus between improvements associated with the base and the city, and whether it's appropriate to consider them similar or even identical. So that's something we'll actually be looking at and bringing back to you at a later date with recommendation.
What would that later date be?
Brian, are we far along in DIF study right now?
Okay. I just recommend the council put that on the agenda as soon as possible so that it can be addressed. And especially in light of the fact that one of the projects that we have that's a major project that we've got to put aside, National Trails Highway from I-15 to Air Expressway, and all those DIF fees could have been applied to that. Could be applied as quickly as possible, I think. So I think we should put it on the agenda at the first opportunity. Yeah. I did notice, I believe, in reading this, none of the right-of-way has been acquired. What is that time period? Do you have any idea how long it's going to take to? Do you even know where the right-of-way is going to be?
We do know where the right-of-way is. We have identified the right-of-way requirements, and we're just on the cusp of preparing the appraisal report, so then we'll have a better idea of the valuations. How long it will take largely depends on if the acquisitions go smoothly or not. As you know, if it goes through the eminent domain process, it can take longer. But we do need to utilize the federal funds, the earmarks, by September of 2019, so that would give us 3 years to acquire the right-of-way and certify it to utilize those federal funds.
3 years?
I'm guessing at this point that it could take up to that time. If things go smoothly, it may. I'm hoping that it will take less time than that.
Okay, I don't have any more questions. Thank you.
We asked for a drawing of the routes, and they're deep down in that package. Yeah. There will be one lane that continues onto Green Tree. One lane going right on Hesperia Road. 2 lanes coming left onto Hesperia Road.
This was just for illustrative purposes on this diagram. We've looked at many different options, and we can incorporate a variety of. What I'm trying to say is we have a number of options that we could incorporate into the final design, which would be very easy, and it wouldn't be a significant cost impact to the project, because since it's just asphalt and concrete and some striping and signal timing, we could do a variety of things to encourage traffic to go south on Asperia Road to use an Nisqually interchange. This is just an exhibit that we showed. We even looked at one option where all the westbound movements would be prohibited, but we were concerned that with that kind of prohibition, it might encourage U-turns and maybe some unsafe vehicle movement. So we're thinking that allowing at least one through lane would probably be a better design for the intersection.
I think blocking a straight through would be just inviting people to break the law, and I don't think we want to do that. Do we have a flyover thought? Was that one of the things that you considered?
That idea did come up. It would
easy, not cheap.
It would add a significant cost to the project.
Yeah, I think the thought would be is if we could secure funding to do something like that, definitely explore that. It's just having the money to be able to do it.
And it would also have a larger footprint, which would be more right-of-way, too.
Right-of-way.
And if the current striping plan results in problems, that could influence us to pursue that federal funding. Keep in mind that, as discussed at other meetings as well, that this is the plan that would be moving forward initially. But if this doesn't work, if the traffic engineers see that this isn't working for whatever reason, it is causing a problem on Green Tree, it can always be changed. The pavement is in place. The striping is very easy to rework to try to influence behavior to eliminate those problems.
The concern I have, of course, is that we are committing all of our major project DIF funds for 20 years plus, which means we aren't going to spend anything on any other major projects in the next 20 years. Is that an accurate statement?
I think that's an accurate portrayal, yeah.
And one thing I'd like to mention is from time to time, certain developers may apply for fee credits on some road improvements that they construct. Usually it's an arterial road on the perimeter of a tract, something like that. And so we have made an allowance in this agreement with Sandbag to reserve 15% of our road diff revenue for that purpose. And we base that on historically what we have credited out of our diff revenues. So it wasn't just a guess, it was actually an estimate. And so that's incorporated into the Sandbag agreement so that capability would be there in the future for developers to be credited on improvements that they construct.
Is that another way of saying there could be some modest amount of money available for major projects?
Well, no, not really, because these are for the typical projects that a developer would build, but the type of project that the city would build, such as the ones we listed in this report, the interchange at Bear Valley Road, widening National Trails Highway, projects like that would be city projects. So if you commit your development impact fees to this project, then that would defer or delay those other city projects.
Yeah, it would be more minor projects that a developer might propose that we would otherwise have paid for. One other thing to keep in mind is for that 20-year period, the other projects that are listed, there would not be funding available for those most likely either at that point, at any point in that 20 years, unless a decision was made to essentially never build this. This project is sort of the next major project on our list of projects to do. So unless the city wanted to essentially never build it, I don't see us building any of those other three projects any sooner than we otherwise would have.
Well, another other point to make here is that this is an opportunity to actually build this project with Sandbag's money versus our money. I mean, otherwise this project would not be built. So the fact that we have the ability to actually secure a loan through Sandbag is something new to the Victor Valley. It has not been exercised here before. This is the first go at it. But otherwise, this project nor any of the other projects would actually be built.
But when you're saying that it's Sandbag's money, in reality, we're paying for it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying is that we can get that money now to pay for it and pay it back over time. versus if we had to go to construction on it in 3 or 4 years, their money would not be there.
No,
Correct.
no, there's no way. We would have to essentially wait the 20 years. And our estimation is that construction costs will rise much faster than whatever this interest rate is on these bonds.
If we were to agree to this tonight, are we committing ourselves to saying that yes?
This is the loan agreement, but ultimately, at some point in the future when the project is more ready, the construction management agreement will come back to the City Council, as will the final construction agreement to build the project. So that's probably 2 to 3 years away, most likely. That's correct. And if the bonds come in at a much higher rate than we may have anticipated, the council could at that time very easily say no and unwind this agreement altogether.
Really?
That's the concern that I had. I wanted to make room for other council to decide whether yes.
Yeah, because there's going to be, like Doug said, there's going to be a lot of subsequent agreements that have to go into place. This just allows everyone to move in that direction to ultimately fund the project, but you do have the construction management, you do have the actual construction agreement. If the bonds that Sandbag issues come in at an interest rate that this council doesn't want to pay, you could technically unwind it at that point in time. There might be some other things that would trigger us saying we're not going to move forward on it. I mean, there's a lot of parties to this agreement, so keep that in mind. They all have to agree to this as well. So all those moving parts are a part of this. This by no means ties the hands of a future council, but it does allow staff and Sandbag and the county as well as the town of Apple Valley to move forward to look.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
I think it allows everyone to move ahead on the planning. More of an agreement than just planning, but to proceed. On the other hand, we don't know exactly what we're going to run into at the crossing. I would expect some new environmental issues to be raised because of that area, size of the bridge, the fact that it's a major wash area. Maybe have looked at, but this is California. And also, I'm into Green Tree, and I know that the council, past council, none of us here, had discussions on that, and there was a lot of negative comments and people that were opposed to having the traffic come into Green Tree because of the amount of the current traffic. I have never seen any traffic studies. I know somewhere along the line you have to have those to project the widths of the right-of-way and so on, but certainly I would expect the staff to look at the possibility of restricting truck traffic on Green Tree on the night hours, because I live there, I know those people, I know the complaints already about trucks. That was supposed to end when the city expended the money they expended to build the Nisqually and then the Nisqually interchange, with the whole idea of serving that industrial area. Improvements to Bear Valley, supposed to. I don't know that that's a problem. I don't know that the noise factor can be mitigated with no traffic, for example, during the nighttime hours, but certainly would hope that engineering would look at all of those factors. Have some unhappy people. We could have a lot of unhappy people as a result of that. Going to be a lot of additional traffic on an already crowded street. Have to part of this whole process.
Well, I think from the first time I ever saw this project, I thought it was a great benefit to the valley. I don't think there's any question about that. I think the benefit to the city of Victorville versus the cost to the city of Victorville is marginal at best. I just don't think there's much benefit to Victorville, but it sure is a terrific benefit to the entire valley, and that, I guess, requires that we be good neighbors. I'm going to go along with it, at least at this stage, just because I think you've done a lot of work, Ryan, and I think this is the best way I can see to do it if we're going to do it. But boy, I think it's that's all I really have to say.
Is that a second?
Yeah, I guess it's a second.
Motion by Mr. McEachran, second by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, we got over that one. Now we move on to public comments. Don't have any cards at this time. No. So, report from city manager?
Just a reminder about the Fall Festival coming up Saturday, October 1st. This is going to be the biggest one ever, we believe. This will be the 15th anniversary of the event. This is very likely to be the biggest event in the entire Victor Valley, North Desert area of the whole county, and not one to be missed. Any of you who've seen the photos of the kids on the rock wall or the ponies and things, I can't stress enough, somehow we've struggled to advertise the fact that all those fun and games for the kids are 100% free. It is a free event. It is a very good time. I hope to see everybody out there.
What was that date again, Doug?
That is October 1st.
Well, I keep telling everyone that the city does provide so much for the youth, and this is a great example of what the city does. And last year was tremendously successful, and I'm pretty sure that this one will be twice as much.
Yeah, we believe we had about 30,000 people out last year, so it really is a great day.
Anyone else?
One thing. I have been getting calls, emails, people in my face on a more regular basis in the last several weeks about our homeless problem here in Victorville. And it's more coming from our business owners, homeless people doing all kinds of things, from breaking into their facilities and sleeping there, sleeping on their patios, to defecating in their places of business. And it's become such a problem that I don't think we can ignore it anymore. It happens at my place of business on a regular basis, but it happens at Victor Valley Mortuary. It happens in other places in Old Town. Business owners are constantly complaining to me. I know that somewhat the Sheriff's Department's hands are tied, that there's laws that give rights to the homeless, but I have to believe that there is something that this city can do more. It's gotten to a place where it's out of hand, and I have business owners telling me that they will take the law into their own hands. Both Captain Lucia and I do not like to hear those types of things, because it creates a scenario by which people could get severely hurt. And so we need to do something as a city beyond what our Sheriff's Department can do to address this problem. I'm not exactly sure what that is. I don't have the answers. But I would like to look at creating somewhat of a task force. I'd be more than willing to sit on with another member of the City Council. We just need to do more.
And that's actually already in the works. We've met with the county, both the CEO as well as First District Supervisor Lovingood. Mayor was there, Mayor Pro Tem was there, and then I know the Mayor Pro Tem and one of my staff members, the assistant to the city manager, went down to a homeless workshop in San Bernardino. Happened to be the same day as the Blue Cut fire, so they had to leave a little bit early. Somehow Mayor Pro Tem Cox drove a little quicker than my staff member, and he got through the pass, whereas mine went up and over Big Bear. Took her 6 hours to get home, but
no fire doesn't
that's
bother
irregardless. But we actually have had a very positive response from the county. and we don't have anything to announce just yet, except that Mayor Pro Tem Cox had directly reached out, and we've done some outreach as well with our local hospitals who are impacted through the care, and we are working very closely with the county now on some permanent housing for the homeless that brings with it permanent services as well. So it will take some time. I wish I could share more, but everything is sort of in that phase. So we are actively seeking people to be involved on a task force to address exactly those things you're talking about.
I just wish we could use all that housing out of former Georgia Air Force.
Yeah, it's not quite ready for that.
Federal
so.
exemption on that.
Yeah, but it's far superior to what they have now.
Yeah.
Especially the apartments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Anyway, thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
Behind the Haley Myers, that used to be Haley Myers, I believe, and U.S. Bank.
Oh,
What's
right,
the
right.
name? Myers. And U.S. Bank. I mean, that is horrible there. I mean, they have piles of clothes, trash, whatever.
Yeah, what we've unfortunately learned more through other cities having problems, but we've had a few of our own, is that the homeless are provided with similar property rights as you and I, as homeowners, as renters. I don't know how much trouble we got in, but I know other cities have been in pretty severe trouble for removing the belongings of a homeless person from the area they've chosen to take up residency.
Homestead?
Yes, it's very similar to that. Yes, we were fairly shocked to see some of the damage awards in other cities. So we've had to scale back some of our removal of belongings, and we've actually ordered. I don't know if they're in yet, but we've actually ordered temporary holding facilities, essentially almost like large evidence lockers, so that if a homeless person is, say, arrested or gone for some period of time, we can't simply go in and remove what appears to us to be trash, because that is their household belongings, even if they don't have what you and I would consider a household. So we have to store them for so much time, provide notice. It's difficult to understand for those of us who choose not to live that way, but they are afforded the same rights, and it has become even more and more difficult to address the issue of the volume of material that they simply collect as their belongings.
In other words, we have to learn to accept their lifestyle.
To a certain degree, we do. There are things we can do, but it takes much longer than you or I would like them to take.
Madam Mayor, just a couple things. I want to give you an update on VVWRA. There's some significant developments there. I think Logan Olds has presented the most responsible budget we've seen in a long time. Sadly, he had to lay off 13 people from the VVWRA staff. What was interesting about that it took them from 49 to 36 people in their operation. That number, 36, was almost exactly the number of people they were operating with about 12 years ago, when they were operating at exactly the same flows they are today. So why that little empire has grown over there, I'm not quite sure, but he's taken some important steps, I think, to reduce staffing. They made a decision to contract out their lab testing rather than to build a $6 million lab building and do all their testing in-house. So they've done some smart things. We're having some serious discussions about how the two sub-regionals will be operated going forward. I can tell you I see positive things happening at VVWRA. The other thing is I really appreciated the gentleman's comments tonight about the ballot issue. I really do hope, that we have an informed public considering this issue when it hits the ballot in November. They're going to read it, and most people aren't going to really understand what it's all about. But it's a very, very important issue. It's to decide whether we're going to have representatives elected at large citywide, or whether they're going to be elected by a particular gerrymandered neighborhood. do we want neighborhoods represented here, or do we want the entire city represented? And that's how I see it. I think others see it a lot the same way. Problem is the legislature, in their wisdom, has decided the only way to give adequate representation to minorities, and it's little hard to define that term anymore, but to give adequate representation, you must have district elections. That's all based on an assumption that racial, ethnic groups gather and live in defined neighborhoods within a city. And where that might be true, I grew up in San Bernardino, and I can tell you it was true there. Most of our explosive growth in Victorville has happened since 1985, 1990. We don't have ghettos in Victorville. We don't have racial pockets in Victorville. Well, our population is spread throughout the city. I mean, you're just not going to find districts that are going to somehow give some particular group different or somehow better representation. So I think it is an important issue, and who knows whether people will just vote for it or just vote against it without understanding it. But it would be great to have an informed discussion. And we're pushing an uphill battle with the courts. The courts have overruled and overturned every city who's fought this. Even when the city voted against going to district elections, the courts overturned it and said, we don't care what you think. The legislature thinks this is what's best for you, so this is what you have to do. So, it's unfortunate. I think most of the cities we see that have district voting or ward systems have myriad problems that we just don't really see here in Victorville. We don't have political wars among neighborhoods in this town. We just don't have that. We have good, healthy differences of opinion from time to time, but so I hope we have an informed discussion on this whole issue.
And the issue of regarding the building development fees at the base, I think we have two issues: building development fees in total, and those at the base. I don't think we're ready for a total study. We have the study. It's a question of whether or not they need to apply to the old George Air Force Base. I recommend that be put on the next agenda. If not possible, the next one, the one following. No reason to go beyond that.
Can you explain that, Jim? I'm not with you there. Can you explain that? Why that's an issue? Aren't they the same everywhere?
No, they're not being collected at the base at all.
Oh. No diff at the base, but we have diff everywhere else in the city. Why?
Well, it's a long story, and we can explain it. But primarily, when the whatever the group we called took over George Air Force Base, they knew there was going to be major improvements. There was going to be a redevelopment project, and the water system had to be rebuilt. The sewer system had to be rebuilt. Roads had to be rebuilt, and it would have certainly devastated any building development fee fund, and you would have had years of borrowing. And the better way to do it was simply use redevelopment fees and not collect the fees. Now that redevelopment has gone away, it almost forces us back to look at that, paying the development fees there.
I'd be in favor of that.
Anyone else? Anything else? There's nothing before the council, so this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Eric, work on your